What's up, y'all? It's Bethany and Dave and Audrey. Hi, babe.
Hi, I'm really happy to be here.
Okay, tell us, how are you feeling to be here? It's been a while.
I'm feeling good to be here. Actually, really look forward to these.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, we have a bunch of questions that we actually got from you all. We took a question poll and you asked a bunch of questions. So if you are single or married, we have questions that we're going to answer that will be beneficial to all of you. But we thought it would be fun to answer questions that are more like currently right now. How do we deal with things? How do we do things? How does Dave think about things? Less of always in the past, like what did we do when we were dating? What did we do when we were engaged? Which is fun, but it's cool, I think, to talk about where we are now. We're 4 years married. I would say we have grown and changed a lot in the last 4 years. So maybe let's start by just giving like, I don't know,
6 months.
The last 6 months. I don't know, like a little recap of why we think we've changed so much. I don't know. You go for it.
Wow.
Hey.
I think that a lot of things have changed more recently, like in the last 6 months.
Yeah, that's true.
I'll just speak personally. I got to a point basically 4 years into our marriage where I just kind of hit a big wall of disappointment and went to get counseling. Mostly thinking you should get counseling. I was mostly thinking really Bethany should get counseling. But I'm going to lead in this and make it about me and my issues. And it turned out to be a lot about me and my issues after all.
But then I did go get counseling.
But then you did go get counseling. She did go get counseling.
Yeah.
So, there's multiple different levels of how that worked out.
Yeah. I mean, I think overall I've probably been like, maybe like less thinking about, oh, we need to grow as much or we have issues, more like optimistic, I guess, would you say?
About our marriage,
Yeah.
You definitely presented a more optimistic picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that in some ways you have thought more optimistically, or even if I were to ask, you would say you were happy.
Yeah.
I was miserable. I think you were calling, you were like, I just don't know, I can't really make you happy. And, I'm pretty happy. That's more what you were saying at the time.
Yeah.
But I was pretty miserable for good reason.
Can you unpack that a little bit more?
Well, it wasn't her fault. I just had I had a lot to work through, and I entered our relationship hoping in a lot of ways that it would give me what I wanted. And through the course of 4 years of time, I realized that my biggest problem was not what I wasn't getting out of our relationship. It was what I was bringing to our relationship and wasn't capable of in our relationship, which was very underdeveloped and very low.
I'm so interested. I feel like everyone's going to be interested more in...
I'm coming out of a closet here.
No. Okay.
There are more than one closets. There are a number of different closets one may come out of.
Okay, so we both went and got counseling last year separately. We didn't do marriage counseling. I found
which we should.
Yeah, we really want to.
That would be really fun. We would both really enjoy that.
We really want to do just like basic marriage counseling, and then we really want to do like work with a sex therapist. Y'all know I've talked about that a lot. I think there's so much benefit. I think every married couple should get marriage counseling, individual counseling, and see a sex therapist. Like that's my personal opinion.
I particularly need it. But she says everyone needs it or everyone should get it, but
I just think that, there is so much more to marriage and so much like joy and excitement and life to be had. And I think a lot of us just settle because we are like, well, this is just the way it is. This is just us as a couple or whatever. And so each of us seeing our individual counselors helped a ton. Like I grew so much, and I grew in ways that I didn't even go, like I didn't go to counseling for the specific areas that I grew in. And then I grew a ton. Like I wasn't particularly going to get counseling for our relationship or for my role as like a wife, but then
which I was like,
I was going for other stuff. And then as we started talking and stuff, my counselor was like, you have some really, like bad perspectives. She was so black and white and just like, basically like, you need work on these things. And I was like, oh, So, and then you saw
I saw a great counselor. He took me through a number of different things. Very, very kind man, and very knowledgeable. Had a lot of training and stuff. He was both a former pastor and had a degree in, I think, counseling or psychology or something. So,
yeah,
he took me through EMDR, which is a trauma processing program where you basically, it's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And so he took me back to some of my past, my history, family stuff, and it's still to this day, I don't know that I talk about it as traumatic, but EMDR regardless seems to be pretty helpful. But that was really the beginning of my awakening to what's really going on in our relationship and in myself.
Yeah. So where would you say we are now?
Where we are now, I think we are both really aligned on the direction that we're taking. We are very much going in general in the same direction. I'm very, very excited and passionate about certain understandings and resources that I've come across, and you are very excited as well. So I think having that alignment is where we're at now.
Yeah.
So now we're able to speak more and more with the same language,
Totally.
the same psychological language, the same personal development language. And I think that's given us I don't know, it's really cool because we're able to do it ourselves in our own lives, but then to be able to also come together and do it in your relationship, that's I think become more exciting. So I would say the sense now is a lot more one of excitement, a lot more hope, and a lot more conversations where we are aligned.
Yeah, I think something that people may not know about us is like we are very, very open and willing to change. We're very open to like new ideas and stuff. And so that's been really helpful and exciting because, the resources that Dave has found and that he has dug into aren't necessarily like resources that I would have found or initially been attracted to. And same with me. Like I find stuff that he may not have initially been interested in. And so it's really cool as a married couple to not be like, no, you need to read from the same books that I am and you need to learn from the same people that I'm learning from. And like, just like dictating what each other must do. We've both been really open to like, hey, this really connected with me. Would you be willing to listen to this or to read that? Or let's read this together. And even if it's not initially what the other person would have picked up. And I think that's been huge for our growth because I'm reading things and listening to things that I definitely would have picked out or sought out myself, And it's been,
you've been a good example of being open-minded. Some of the things that you would bring as I was finding some of these new resources, I was like, well, it's not this new resource that I've found. So I'm just kind of brushing your resources aside, and I was, a jerk about it. So for a little while, but you were able to look past a lot of that and see some of the good in what I was bringing, which is more than I can say for myself on a lot of the time.
I'm really excited. I think that the resources he's brought to the table, and then we'll jump into some of the questions, but I just have to say that's all I want.
Yeah, this was kind of fun.
Yeah. I would say that the thing I really appreciate probably the most about the resources that he's bringing is that I think that they are very, very, they go deeper, like they're very practical and they're very honest. Sometimes what I found in some of like the Christian marriage books or Christian, just like basic talks is I think sometimes they kind of stay shallow and they say like they're getting to the root biblically, but oftentimes it's just like, like, sir, sorry, Andrew. I'm trying to nurse without being like, exposing the whole world to me. I know I've got like a little corner. We can trim it up. We can crop this bad boy a little bit. Is I feel like the resources that you have found go really deep and actually talk about like the truth of what's actually going on in marriages or individuals and give really, really practical, helpful guidance in a way that I haven't seen necessarily tons of Christian resources do. So that's something I'm really excited about. And it can come across, like, for me as a little uncomfortable, because it's like, oh wow, they just like, they go there, they talk about all the things. And I think that that's been amazing, you know, and it's personally pushed me to find people and resources that I wouldn't have initially. So like, I'm coming out with a course for Christian women on sex. And I'm going to be releasing that like an online course. And the people that I had on, like experts that I had on for this course, were people, some of them were people I maybe like a year ago wouldn't have had on to talk about sex.
I've been so impressed with a lot of the people that you've chosen to have on, what you've told me about them. That goes back to what I said about being more aligned and where we're going and we were talking about things. Yeah, I've been really pleased about that.
But I have found it like so helpful.
Yeah.
You know,
it's not just towing the line that we're always towing.
Yeah. So anyway, that's like our mini counseling session in front of y'all.
Yeah, right.
Anything else before we jump into the questions?
No.
Okay. So first question, and I'm going to go through questions, but we're going to have a conversation kind of like about each one. So, and these are questions that y'all asked. Okay. Does it bother Dave that you talk so openly about sex online?
The answer is yes, but in a good way. So I am proud of how open and honest Bethany is about sex, how she's owning her sexuality herself, and rather than expecting or requiring somebody to give her something in order for her to be sexually fulfilled. But because Bethany does talk a good bit about sex, it indirectly does reflect on me in our sexual relationship, and it challenges my needy desire to be thought of as competent and strong. So something she says could expose me as sexually inadequate, or cause people to question, like, oh, what kind of a sex life do they have? How good is he in bed? Does he even have what it takes? All of those things that I would question about myself. Of course, I project onto, well, that's what other people could think of. But the awesome thing about that is this creates an opportunity for me to face that in myself. And that at the end of the day, my sexual adequacy is not something worth keeping around or focusing on. In fact, that's something that I'm trying to move away from, is that whole mindset altogether. So the exposure via Bethany talking about sex and herself and our relationship is very exposing in that sense, or at least it seems to be exposing to me. And that is an awesome opportunity for me to basically challenge myself where I'm weak, which is what other people think. How am I going to deal with that and handle that myself? Am I going to get my sense of adequacy from what other people think, even from what Bethany thinks? Or am I going to have that self-contained inside me, where I can be around people, even people who think less of me, and still retain my form and my shape, and move into the world with confidence, regardless of how other people might view me. So it's just an awesome opportunity to confront that.
Yeah.
So I would say, which is actually how I'm starting to think of all of social media in that sense. Like, this is just an opportunity.
Yeah.
But the way people can take you or one up you, or try to kind of, ridicule, or, create these kind of categories of greater than, less than, that's just an opportunity to become stronger as a human being.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the reason I talk about sex online is because of like my desire for other women to know, like, there are more, like, we all have questions. We all have areas where we feel like we're not good at, or we struggle in. And like I said, sometimes in the Christian world, it can be like, yes, you just need to serve each other, and that's where the best sex comes from, or whatever. Like being, whatever. There can be like
Boo.
these basic terms, and you're like, well, we have like physically more struggles, or we haven't been able to like achieve something, or we're like not connecting, even though we're like going through the motions, and we need help with that. And so I never claim to be a sex expert. I am very open that we're learning and growing, and that's why I'm constantly recommending resources and pointing you to people that I trust, that I've learned from, that he's learned from. So
yeah. I would have more of a problem with it if you were trying to come across as some sort of expert or like, but the fact that you're more of a curator trying to bring along resources that are helping you, that's
okay. And I know you're going to ask like, where's the sex course or whatever. It's not released yet, but you can go to my Instagram at bethany.beal. That's going to be the best place to follow along if you like to talk about this stuff, if you like to hear about this stuff, if you want the course when it comes out. Just follow me on Instagram at bethany.beal. Okay, next question. How do you model godly manhood for your son, Davey, our 3-year-old son, our firstborn?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot more just really recently, realizing that I do really want him to have good male role models in his life, not just get his idea for what manhood is from women, honestly. So he needs to be around other men. And as far as me modeling it, I don't really think so much about me modeling it as much as I think about becoming the real thing myself.
Yeah.
And then just being around him. So I need to basically accept myself in my complete manliness and my manhood, and expand out into the world and create and expand my capacity and confront myself and take full responsibility. And the more I do that, and then I'm around Davey, that's what he's going to get.
Yeah,
but I can't model something for him I don't have.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing as parents that we've talked about, is like being the most authentic and genuine in our relationship in front of them, and like learning to genuinely love one another, and all of that I think is going to be the best case scenario for our kids.
Yeah, you really. I'm a big believer in that. Maybe in another 20 years we'll be like, wow, I totally missed something deeper. But right now it seems like that's the truest way to do it. You have to like actually go through the work yourself. You can't take somebody to a level that you're not already at.
Totally.
So
I agree. I think it's cute though. I think y'all have a great relationship. Davey really likes you.
Yeah, I've been working on
together.
Well, I've been working on doing being more assertive and demanding when I'm around him, saying this is what we're going to do. Then he throws a fit or something. I'm like, this is what we're going to do. And let him kind of go through that process of, life doesn't always work out the way we want. There are plans, there are things we need to be doing. And not every women idea that you have is something that we have time for.
Yeah.
And so he needs to learn that, how to self-regulate and all that, but accept the fact that he has emotions and work through it.
Yeah.
She is more than happy to work through. I'd much rather him throw a massive fit than become the sort of boy that stuffs his emotions and just tries to please everybody, and which is something like what I sort of did.
Yeah. We're totally okay with him having emotions, obviously, and
course.
men.
No, I'd rather him get it out so we can see it.
Yeah.
And talk about it and deal with it and stuff, rather than being like, don't.
Yeah. Davey took the most intense parts of each of our personality, and that's him.
That's great.
He's like 10 of 10.
Yeah.
On his best days and on his worst days, he's like a 10, It's hilarious.
That's a cool deal.
Okay, next question. What did you think of your age gap at first versus now? I'm 5.5 years older.
I remember when I would think about girls before being with Bethany, and just a couple years would be kind of a stretch. Like, oh wow, either I'm so much older than them, or there's some. So Bethany was that's quite a stretch. 5.5 years.
I remember you talking about other girls that were my age, and he would talk about how old they were. And I was like, there's just no hope for me.
You played your age down a lot. You kind of like acted young and foolish.
I still feel young at heart.
You still got some energy.
I mean, I don't know why though. To me, people ask that question all of the time. It's probably one of the questions I get asked most is like, what
Height
did you think
and the
about?
height
Oh, and the
too.
height. Yeah,
And the
because I'm
height too.
taller.
Yeah.
I'm older and taller. So I'm like maybe like an inch and a half taller than you, or
I'm like, hi, babe.
that. So the height and the age. Yeah, but it like for me, it was never a concern because I dated guys that were my age or older, and I always felt like they were such grandpas. Sorry if any of them are listening, but you were kind of a grandpa. And I just wanted someone who had energy and was fun and young and like, or acted younger. Oh,
acted younger. I definitely acted younger.
So but it's like never been a problem in our
Yeah.
relationship. I see you scrolling down.
Yeah, I'm looking at the next.
Okay, how do we find time to be alone and away from the kids?
So this has kind of been. I mean, we just had Audrey.
Yeah, she's still here with us.
4 months ago.
3 months ago.
3 months ago. So, it's still kind of a challenge with her. But Davey does go to bed eventually. He does sleep in a bed, and it's a different room and stuff. So that's nice. I mean, we have a wonderful family that helps babysit.
Yeah. I mean, we could talk about with Davey, like before she came along.
Yeah, for sure with Davey. I mean, he can go over to Kristen's house or, Nana's house.
Yeah.
And we love to go go out for dinner.
Oh yeah.
Hang out. Just now for my birthday, Kristen watched Davey, and we were able to, go out to one of our favorite restaurants, and then another one of our favorite restaurants, and a third.
Yeah. Well, we tried to leave Audrey.
Yeah, I think we went to 3.
But she didn't want a bottle, and I've only tried a few times, so we had to pick her up. So one of the things that
we couldn't go see it. We want to go see a movie.
Yeah.
And
I didn't want to bring her. So before Davey came along, which is the plan with Audrey too, is with Davey when he was like 5 or 6 months old, we did sleep training. I don't really care about your opinion on sleep training, what you think about that. We used Little Z Sleep.
Are they coming for you?
I strongly recommend. I'll link to it below. We used Little Z Sleep, which I think is a wonderful way to approach it. And we went from with Davey, who was like the worst sleeper of all time, to having like no life, being physically exhausted, like marriage wise, just like we were full, just like it was 24/7 with Davey. And so
it was the worst.
It was really, really hard.
When Davey was born, it was like the lowest point in my life.
Not because of him.
It wasn't him and it wasn't you.
Yeah.
But it was still the lowest point in my life.
We were stretched to the limit those like first 6 months. So anyway, I personally was like, our marriage is so important and I am going to sleep train this kiddo. So we did. And it was like a transformation. We went from like having literally no time and like losing our minds to him sleeping 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. So that is what we're going to do with her. So Audrey's currently bed sharing or co-sharing, whatever, co-sleeping with us right now. But when she hits like 5 or 6 months, we'll do the same sleep training program, and then she'll sleep 7 to 7 as well. And that just makes it easy because it's so much easier for people to come babysit, even like family, when they know bedtime routine is set. They know when the kids go down, and they know like it's very, very clear. And they can also put the kids down and then hang out or do whatever they want. So like a lot of times if we asked my parents or my mom to watch Davey, she would bring my dad and they would come over and then they'd put the kids down and just like hang out and watch a movie or whatever. So they were able to like not lose their whole evening by watching our kids. So that's really like, we also, we've done multiple like getaways where with just the two of us. And I think that's been because our kids have been so far one, had been pretty well sleep trained. Okay. How do you resolve conflict, and do you do it away from your kids?
So I was raised in a house where conflict was always sort of behind closed doors. The parents go behind closed doors to do the conflict. What about you?
I think probably mostly, but I definitely remember conflict.
You remember conflict?
Oh yeah,
okay. Well, I remember tension, like between my parents, but I don't. Typically, they would always go into a room and like.
Yeah, probably mostly. I think sometimes though, my parents would resolve in front or apologize or whatever. So
we haven't. We mostly just have it out right in front of Davey. I mean, I've actually been thinking of that lately. Like, I wonder if this is a good idea. But one of the things that I do think is important is to model, healthy conflict resolution. Because that's the one thing that can happen if you don't show your kids how to model conflict resolution where there's room for 2 people, not just 1 or 1.5 people. I think what can often happen when I don't model that is your kid's gonna get a sense where like one person just always has to sort of deny themselves,
Yeah.
what they think, deny their integrity for the purpose of making the other person happy or submitting to the other person. And I think that's unhealthy. So I think going back and forth, in front of Davy is positive. It can be positive. I don't know I'm still working on whether that's a good idea for every conflict, but certainly we've done it on a number of occasions.
Yeah. We definitely have a lot of interruptions when we do that, though.
That's the one thing. Yes, exactly. So it'll be like, bow, 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 bow. Let me take care of Davey. Hold that thought. There might be some tears or something. Like, hold that thought. And then come back towards it. So you were saying, you hate me. Why?
Okay, but neither of us came from homes where there was like yelling or anything traumatic in that
there
sense.
Are worse things. There are worse things than yelling, though. There are worse things than yelling. There are totally worse things than yelling.
We're not.
Anger is not a problem.
I'm saying we're not like when we talk about fighting or whatever. It's like we're not throwing things. We're not yelling. We're not physically aggressive in any way.
Yeah, right. Conflict. What do you want to call it? Conflict. I think it's fighting. I think fighting is. I think of fighting less of like you got boxing gloves and you're just going after it, and more like you're both asserting your individuality together. You're both like, here's me. Okay, I see. I hear what you're saying, but this is my perspective. And you're kind of like, kind of go after it. That's a fight. You're both kind of wrestling for whose preferences are gonna have a say in the direction of your relationship. And I think that's very healthy to do.
Yeah. I would say we both like less than just being like, oh, whatever you want or whatever you want. We both kind of like stand up for what we think and believe now more. Yeah. And in some ways that causes more conflict, but I would say it definitely brings more intimacy between us.
Yeah, it brings more intimacy, and the conflict is a lot more clean. There's a lot less lying. Lying's the worst.
What do you mean by that?
Well, like what I did for years was basically just kind of strain myself to see it from her point of view, and then just sort of apologize for everything, even though if I was really honest, I wouldn't think that I needed to apologize.
So more of like an integrity lying, not like, oh, I was at the store and you weren't. Like not like words lying, more like integrity of
lying about what you think. Lying by apologizing for something that you don't actually believe is yours to apologize for. Because you're trying to release or alleviate that tension in your relationship. So you deny your integrity in order to have peace, which is, it comes at a super high cost.
Like
super duper high.
An example might be like, I don't want my coffee to spill. Like just, it's like balancing, like shoving things under the rug or just trying to appease the other person. So you're not being truthful, you're not being honest, but not because you genuinely care about the other person, but just because you want peace or you want happiness or you just don't want to deal with it. So there's a way, there's a way to selflessly go about like giving up your rights in a sense, or you saying, okay, we'll do that even though I don't want to, but it's out of a place of like honesty and selflessness and love. And then there's doing that just because you want to avoid and you don't want to deal with it. And you just want to try to make the other person happy. And that's not good. Yeah.
If you're going to put the other person first, you do it by choice.
Yeah.
You got to do it by choice. If you don't do it by choice, or you offload your responsibility onto the other person, then that's just, you're going to get a ton of bitterness.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very cause and effect.
Yeah.
Very predictable.
Yeah. I think that goes perfect into so let's do the question that was at the end. And then we have questions for like relationship kind of questions, romantic sort of thing. So let's do the bottom question. Okay. What do you and Bethany disagree on, and how do you handle the difference of opinions? Okay, so this is kind of the stuff like, I don't know, a lot of people don't want to talk about like the genuine side of things, but I feel like it's good too. So we're going to go for it.
But that's the content people like.
I know. So what do we disagree on, and how do we handle the difference of opinion?
Oh, we still disagree on the end times?
Okay, so I used to be so passionate about like my view of the end times, and it was like a make or break it in a dating relationship. And there are so many people I respect who disagree on it that it's less of like a make it or break it deal, obviously, because I married Dave and we have different perspectives. So
yeah, so that would be.
And our church has a different
That's
perspective.
easy. Right. I'm like, I love our church. Yeah. I mean, that's an easy one. I use strong language. We talked about that before. And Bethany does not agree with that. She calls me she's like, what do you say? It's like a homeschool. It's like the homeschooler who kind of is like stretching his verbal muscles by using strong language because he can.
Strong language.
He doesn't have a problem.
Bad words.
Bad words.
Yeah, definitely we disagree on that. I view it as
bad words. Strong. I prefer strong language that helps communicate what I mean.
And I think if you have to use that language to communicate, you're a poor communicator.
Okay. Well, I hear you, but would you rather use 25 words or just one? And you communicated just as well.
Okay, so Dave, I didn't bring a spit up thing, a towel. Dave did not use strong language when we started dating. I don't use language.
I did a little bit before we started dating. There were times.
I don't use language. I got religion. Use curse words.
I got religion when we got together, which was a bad idea.
So, okay. I called someone a jerk yesterday and someone got mad at me for it. But it was because a dad literally was...
Wait, you called him a jerk?
No, not to his face. Oh. A dad was like so rude to me at the park with Davey, and he was like very aggressive in his words. And so later when I was talking about it on social media, I was like, he was a jerk. I didn't know a better way to describe it, and someone got mad about that.
That's the best place to talk about people.
So I don't have a problem really with calling someone a jerk or like that level of language, but he uses bad words. And like I don't like necessarily to be I don't like that in front of me, or I don't like that language like to be communicated to in that way, and I definitely don't like it in front of the kids. But something that I have really come to is like we are two individual people. Yes, we're married and we have a covenant that we're a part of, but I am not going to force him to be a version of him that I think I don't know, want or need. Like I think it's so important to allow each other to just like be on their own journey and learn and grow themselves, and not like become bitter or like I'm going to be super manipulative until you change or do what I want to do. It's like, no, he's got the Holy Spirit and he can do like, I'm not going to be his Holy Spirit. I'm not going to be his mom. I'm his wife and I love him, and I'm not going to force him to be everything that I think he needs to be in order for us to have like a great relationship. So in some ways I appreciate that he doesn't just like cater and bow down to everything that I want. It's like, he's going to be his own man and do what he thinks is best. And that's strong language for him. I don't know. What do you think?
She thinks it's sexy.
What? Sorry, just exploded everyone's ears. So. Well, I think that I got him a new outfit for his birthday, and I told him it was his sexy outfit because it looked so good.
I'm telling you. I mean, I think she says that, but at the same time, it's kind of like.
I think sometimes you overdo it because you think I like it, and I'm like in my head, I'm like, oh, this is dumb.
That's a different question, whether or not I overdo it. That's probably true.
But I did hear, so here's something funny. I heard a woman I greatly respect, a very godly woman, someone I look up to so much. She shared how, this is when it started. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I came home and told Dave that this very godly woman that I respect, I don't want to say her name because, I'm not going to, she can share if she wants. But she told me, she's like, something y'all don't know about me is that my husband curses like a sailor. And she's like, he has been that way from day one, and he still is. And people are sometimes very surprised when they meet him because he is just... that's the way he is. And I really admired and appreciated how she is realized, like, I can't change him. I'm not going to change him. So I'm just going to love him. And, they have a great marriage and they've worked through a ton of stuff. And I really respect that. And so I want to be that kind of wife. Like, I don't want to constantly be trying to like mold you and form you and like, here, be just a little person that I want you to be.
I'd like to see you try. Hey, look.
Oh,
baby.
Yeah, we have Audrey with us.
Baby.
Actually, someone from Australia sent that to us, or New Zealand. Okay, moving on. What is one thing Christian women should know?
She's smiling.
She loves her daddy. The people on the video might entertain, but the podcast people are going to be like, what the heck is going on?
Oh, I forget.
If you're on the podcast, Dave is entertaining Audrey. Okay. What is one thing Christian women should know about how a man thinks when it comes to romantic relationships? One thing Christian women should know about how a man thinks when it comes to romantic relationships. I think this was asked from a single woman's perspective.
Okay.
So this is single women kind of wanting to know how men think about like dating and I don't know.
Okay, so a lot of men, some men are different than others. My opinion is that some men are more healthy than others. So a man can behave in a certain way for a number of different reasons. But a couple examples of some guys would be, some guys like to more be pursued, even a lot of guys that have like, maybe they're leaders in their field or something like that. But then when it comes to intimate relationships, they kind of want to be pursued. Other guys want to be the pursuer. They want to kind of go after someone they're interested in. And it really just depends. And that goes for a lot of girls too, I would say. But that behavior can also be due to other factors. For example, a guy doesn't want to put himself out there because he's worried about rejection. So he's always kind of like trying to catch the vibe before he takes a step, which is always just cheating. It's basically trying to get without putting anything into it, putting any commitment, any type of, not commitment like to
putting yourself on the line,
putting yourself on the line for how you feel, for what you think. I like you.
And being okay with rejection.
Yeah, right. And first it's like, I want to see if she likes me back, if she would be low risk.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to go out. Those guys are, we have insecurity, and that might cause less friction in some ways, but it just turns out to be bad recipe later on.
Yeah.
So the question being, how do men think? I think that those are some examples of reasons why the behavior, what the behavior can possibly be rooted in.
Yeah.
Way of thinking.
I don't think that it means that just because a man like goes about it a little immaturely that he's like, that's a red flag off the bat,
Why?
Why do I think that?
Well, yeah. Why is that not a red flag?
Well, because I think that, none of us are perfect. And, if he's like, especially if he's younger, if you're younger, he, it might be his first relationship. It might be, so I think you don't have to be like, oh, he's not an option because he asked a friend if I was interested first, I think it's important to take the time to get to know him and try to, unless there are obvious red flags, like, if he's like a serial dater, or you've heard from people that know him well, like, oh, he just, he's not that great of a guy, whatever, like, do your research, do your homework on him.
Do your homework, Google him. Don't be like, what's her?
No. I know who you're thinking.
Don't be like Megan Markle. Oh yeah, I got it right.
Yeah, like, it's important to figure this stuff out. You can actually go to girldefine.com/questions. That's a freebie that we have at Girl Define that can help you like work through process and help you get to know a guy. Probably the resource I would recommend the most if you're single, one would be the ebook that I created, all about helping you, a single woman, thrive and really becoming secure in your identity in Christ. I think that's the most important thing, is making sure you're genuinely ready for a relationship before you even worry about him. That one's actually on my website, which is bethanybeal.com. I also have a guide for married women, 150 questions to
strengthen your marriage.
To strengthen your marriage. I couldn't think of it. So if you're wanting some like a single guide and a marriage guide that you can access instantly, you can go to bethanybeal.com. I have those. But yeah, if you want the freebie, it's girldefine.com/questions. Okay. Last question. Do you think Christian single men long for marriage the same way that women do? Women do? If not, how is it different for the boys? Does it stress you out?
No, I'm just trying to think of how to say this. So many men do long for marriage. Many Christian men do long for marriage, and then some long for marriage less. Yeah. Some guys tend to be more like conquest oriented. They more want to like conquer and try to get the girl, but then when it comes to actually long-term commitment and the day-to-day choices, they might be less inclined. But that's not necessarily a positive thing. And then plenty of men do want marriage. They do want that. They do want to give their lives to one person and do want to commit. It really depends.
Yeah. What is that thing you told me? This is kind of random, but was it in a quote, a book? Like, it was like, don't grow before marriage, you grow the most during marriage, or what was that?
Oh, yeah. You,
hey.
Oh,
it was
you don't, no, you don't, you're never, it was something like you're never ready for marriage. Marriage makes you ready for marriage.
Yes. That was it.
Nailed it.
So you're like, you want to learn, you want to grow, you want to prepare. David Snarsh. In his book, was that in his book, Passionate Marriage? It's a really good book, but one that might make you really uncomfortable.
Then go read it.
I think because it's not like the traditional Christian book. And
I don't recommend it because we're only in the first chapter, and I don't recommend books I haven't read.
Yeah, we haven't read the whole thing, but what you know of David Snarsh,
I can guarantee you that I will recommend it when I finish reading it.
It's really good, but like I said, it might make you a little uncomfy, and there are things in there we might not agree with 100%, obviously. But
speak for yourself.
Yeah, I liked that. Like, you want to be with someone who is genuine and authentic, and has a genuine relationship with Christ. But outside of that, like, you're gonna grow together in marriage. Yeah, and that's what's gonna make you ready. For marriage.
And you're not, I'm not married to my marriage. I've heard that one too. I'm married to Bethany, not my marriage.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I mean, I'm more interested in working on myself in the context of my marriage than I am in working on my marriage.
Yeah, totally.
I don't really even know what that means, other than that you're together working.
Yeah.
So you're working, but you're together.
Like, the biggest growth we've seen in our marriage, I guess, would be when we've individually worked on ourselves.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that's when our marriage has grown the most. And
you work on yourself in the context of being close and intimate with this other person.
Yeah.
So the more you can be yourself, hold on to yourself while being with this other person, the more it elevates both your development and the system of your relationship.
So, like, I think both of us would agree that we'd recommend, if you are like, oh, I'm like, I'd love for my marriage to grow or to be better, or I'm not super happy. Like, I think we'd both recommend get individual counseling and work on yourself before being like, we're going to go get marriage counseling. Wouldn't you agree?
It really depends because, there's just so many different types of counseling. So you would have to like what kind of counseling?
I don't know.
Because there's a lot of individual counseling that's just going to kind of make you, feel sorry for yourself and just kind of like offload your issues onto mean people in your life and stuff. And I'm not really about that. I don't think that really helps people as much.
I would recommend, this is my personal recommendation, I got counseling through the Association of Certified Biblical Counselors, ACBC. I'll link them below. I mean, I think we link them in every podcast, but you can literally search Association of Certified Biblical Counselors, and you can find a list of their recommended counselors that are trained through them, and they're all going to be like biblically based. And I think that, they don't come from that like victim mentality at all, and they're just incredible. So that's
they don't let you.
They don't let you just be like, ooh, like, it's not like talk therapy at all. It's
I used to kind of hate the biblical counseling world.
You did.
I used to, yeah. And it's not that I 100% agree with the paradigm, but I have realized through my own work and development that it's not all bad to just tell someone like, hey, you need to like get a hold of yourself and, stop treating yourself like you're freaking defeated all the time.
Yeah. They're pretty straightforward, pretty black and white, pretty much like, here's what the Bible says, deal with it.
Get on it. Yeah, the more it's kind of in like a circle, coming back, and being like, maybe there is something to, just like treating someone like they can make a change rather than always sort of catering to the lowest common denominator.
Yeah, they definitely challenge you and force you to like.
I've never taken it myself, but Bethany has there's this woman that Bethany's seen, and she sounds like
she's so great.
A joy. She sounds like a lot of fun. And I met her.
Yeah.
She seemed like a really, really fun, free individual, which I appreciate that.
And we're going to go to dinner with them, her husband.
And we're going to
her
dinner.
And her husband. Yeah, it's going to be great. So you can, and a lot of them are free. So all that to say, my counseling was totally free. We paid pretty good money for your counseling.
Big money.
But then mine was totally free. So not every counselor in their database is free, but you can email them and ask about their rates. And like I said, mine didn't. It was like a ministry. So that's cool because I know that's a huge concern for a lot of people in getting counseling. But you can find marriage counselors. You can find specific, if it's postpartum trauma, whatever. They have people who are experts in a lot of different areas, people who are trained biblically, but also are doctors. I mean, like my sister, she saw a couple, and he was a doctor, and then they were also like certified biblical counselors. So there are people with all sorts of credentials. So you can find anyone. Okay. Let's see. Anything else you want to say before we wrap it up? Oh, I got the final question. Sorry. This is the question everyone asks all the time, so we have to put it out there. Are you going to start guy defined or man defined?
I used to think that never in a million years would I ever do that. And there would just be a lot that would have to happen. I am interested in bringing people together around ideas that can be beneficial to them and to others, but I don't know if that looks like a guy defined.
So you're saying there's a chance?
I don't know. I think that guys need a lot of help to get out of their own butts. But our own butts. I'll include myself.
Ew. It's disgusting.
Our heads. Okay.
Ew.
So I think that there's a lot of self-serving happening amongst us guys. A lot of us, especially those of us that think that we are better than those toxic men who, hurt women and stuff. I think we're just as emotionally abusive, just as selfish, if not more so, and probably even more self-deceived. So there's definitely a need, but there are also a lot of resources cropping up all over the place to help guys.
Yeah.
And they're not all just these kind of like cliche alpha, transformation. They're kind of like more integrated, and they tend to be good for guys.
Yeah, we have 2 interviews that are coming up. Nancy Piercy, Professor Piercy, we've had her on before. She has a book that's coming out on masculinity, and so we're going to be interviewing her. That's going to be amazing. And then Owen Strawn, he has a book on masculinity that's coming out. So we have those 2 podcasts that are coming out. But if you're like, oh, I'm curious to learn more, books that I am interested in, Kirsten is interested in at Girl Defined specifically, it's Nancy Piercy and Owen Strawn. So you can look up their names and find resources for them. Nancy Piercy has so many great books. She has a book called Love Thy Body. It's incredible. Piercy. Total Truth. She has lots of awesome stuff.
She's kind of cool.
All right. So next steps, if you're wanting to know, okay, like anything, I don't know, anything that any resources that we have. If you are a woman who's wanting to just like get a basic grasp on like God's design for sexuality, your sexuality, then I would definitely recommend the book Kristen and I wrote, Sex, Purity, and the Longings of a Girl's Heart. That's for married or single women. Like that is a must start if you don't have a super deep grasp on God's design for marriage. If you're like, I grew up in purity culture, my sexuality feels really like confusing, or there's a lot of shame around it, or you're just like, marriage isn't really what I thought it would be sexually. That's like a foundation. So I definitely recommend starting there. If you're single and you're like, I want to learn more about like love and dating and romance, then our book Love Defined is where you want to start with that. So you can kind of go through either one of those paths, and everything there is at girldefined.com/shop. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
It's too short. We're under an hour. Where's our second
we'll have to do it again.
Hour? Yeah.
Tell us if you want us to do this again, and leave a review and let us know what you thought of this. And I will see y'all again next week.